Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to do another standalone today. So I have a couple of series that I'm looking at, and I don't know which one I'm going to do with you all first. And so until then, we're going to do some standalones. So what I'm going to do today is there's a couple of books by Jana Aston that I've only read one of the books. The series is called Best Laid Plans, and the first one's called Sure Thing. I haven't read that one, but again, both of the books in this semi-series can be read alone. So if you all want to check that out, absolutely feel free to. I might very well read it one day. But what we're going to do today is Plan B. Plan B is going to focus on Daisy's story. So we meet Daisy Hayden, who after a long string of bad boyfriends decided to go on like a dick cleanse. So she lasted about 4 months. And that's when she met Kyle Kingston. So she doesn't know at first, but she finds out later that this fling that she had was with the CEO of King Stores, which is like a family-owned company. She's also found out that she is now 2 months pregnant. And she's been trying to get in contact with Kyle, but hasn't been able to, and is now going to try Plan B. Now, I will say this. This was an absolute wonderful read. And she's one of those people, you know how people spiral in their heads, like they have like all these thoughts. Like there's overthinkers, and then there's like another level to it. That is what Daisy is. And so it is fun and frustrating to read. But it's such a good read. So I highly recommend, even though I'm going to tell you guys what happens, it's still a great read because I can't read the whole book for you. And so it's something you definitely would want to dive into yourselves for sure. And it's less than like 200 pages, so it's not long at all. But she has so many ADHD moments that are just so fun to read. So Daisy's found out that Kyle's grandfather, William Kingston, is retiring. And they're going to hold a retirement party in Philadelphia. Now, she met him on assignment in Boston. Daisy's a travel guide, and she's also a blogger. So she has a twin sister named Violet. Remember I said the book Sure Thing is about Violet? So they're twins. And so Violet is currently being her as a travel guide in England. Now, Daisy hasn't told her sister about the baby because her sister's someone who like bases her decisions on Daisy's needs. Like Daisy's the wild child, Violet's the responsible person, right? So Violet has always felt as if it's her job to look out for Daisy because Daisy's, she's kind of unpredictable. And so Daisy wants her sister to not feel responsible for her. And she knows the minute she tells her about this baby, her sister's not going to want to leave. It's going to be a whole thing because currently she's like staying with her as well. So she wants her to kind of fly the nest and just do what makes her happy and focus on herself. And it's kind of difficult for her to do that. So she hasn't told her about the baby just yet. So Daisy also has a conference that's going to be in Philadelphia. And so she has decided she's going to crash the retirement party. Just a sidebar, Kyle wasn't the CEO when they banged, but he was promoted like the following week. So she gets all dolled up. She goes to the event. I think it was at like a Marriott or something. And there's security. And of course she stopped, but she was shocked that there was security, which I thought was kind of stupid. Like, these people are like billionaires. Why would you think that they would not have security? But in her brain, she was thinking, oh, it's just a retirement party. I'll just sneak in. There's not going to be any security. That's kind of crazy, but that's how her brain was working. So she tells the woman, whose name is Margot, we find out, that she is Kyle's +1. Well, of course, the woman's like, Kyle Kingston? And she's like, yeah. And so the woman was like, there's no +1. So then she was like, well, he told me, that, he sent an email, it should show it, The woman doesn't even check anything. She's just like, no, nothing was sent. And so then the woman says, well, maybe you can call him. And she was like, okay. So she does this fake phone call. And of course, there's no answer. So then she yells out that she's Kyle's fiance. And then up walks Kyle's cousin, Wyatt Kingston. And he was like, oh, you're his fiance. Well, come with me. Let's go meet some family. So he's taking her inside. The security lady, she's not, she works for the company. I think she's like in marketing, but I guess she's working security tonight. She's pissed, but she can't do anything because it's a whole fucking Kingston. Like, what are you going to do, And so she walks in. Well, as soon as Daisy gets in, she's like telling not Kingston, she's telling Wyatt, hey, I'm sure Kyle wants to introduce me to the family, And Wyatt was like, oh, no. They're here, let's just go. He also made a slick comment to her about, he said, how much is he paying you? And she was just kind of like, excuse me? And he was like, come on, tell me. And she just looked at him with like pure disbelief. So then he takes her over to Kerrigan, who is Kyle's sister. Well, when he tells her the news, of course, she's ecstatic, because she's like, oh my gosh, he told me there was a surprise. I should have known it was going to be something big. She's super happy. She's hugging Daisy. Honestly, just seems like a really sweet girl. She's like 18, And so while they're talking, this makes, Daisy feel kind of bad because it's like, this is genuine excitement. And she's like, oh my gosh. And then she hears Daisy, and it's Kyle's voice. So Kyle kind of goes along with it at first, right? Kerrigan, she's still super excited. And she's talking to Kyle and like, oh my gosh, that's why you were so busy. You were falling in love this summer. Like, she's just, the girl is super excited. So then Kyle made the comment, yeah, I know. It's almost as if I didn't even know myself until just now. So Daisy and Kyle walk off because she started to feel queasy. Rushes her off. I think she went by like the bar or something, and she winds up throwing up in a bucket. And the first thing he says to her was like, you crazy fucking bitch, you're drunk. And she was like, no. After she had finally finished throwing up, she was like, I'm pregnant. I was like, but that's just, okay, here's the thing. If this was a one night stand, you were kind of freaked out, I could understand you being freaked out about this woman popping up. I'm not negating that. Like, I get it. I really get it. But he didn't have to say, you fucking crazy bitch. Like, dude, like, that was so mean. So then, of course, Kyle is like, we got to get out of here. So they leave, and she goes on this whole rant. And this is why I say, you guys, it's a good read. You should read it because her rants are absolutely hilarious. She goes on this whole rant of how she had done all these things to try and reach him and couldn't. And so she saw this as a way to get to him. And she let him know, like, I don't want anything from you. I was just basically doing a courtesy by letting you know. So he's, of course, befuddled by everything that's going on. And he winds up taking her back to his apartment because she was like, you can drop me off at the end of the street. I'll call a cab and go back to my hotel. I'm going to go back a little bit. While they were in the car, she had told him what Wyatt had said about the whole basically insinuating that she was a prostitute type of comment. And that pissed him off. He didn't like that at all. So they get to his apartment. They go upstairs. She kicks off her shoes and goes in the bathroom and just starts using his toothbrush to brush her teeth. And her thought process was, you've already knocked me up, what's a little bit more sharing? So he's just watching her, and she's like, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm watching you. And then, of course, he starts rubbing on her neck. And she didn't stop him. So before you know it, he's taking off her dress. He stuck his finger in her pussy, and she's extremely wet. And she is so beyond ready for him. So she, in her brain, she's like, she doesn't like him, but her body clearly does. So he keeps rubbing her clit. He stopped, and she elbowed him in the chest and was like, why did you stop? And then so finally I think he made her come, and then he put his dick in her, and they had a nice hard fuck in front of the mirror, which is super hot. So then she yells at him because he came inside of her, and she was like, you just did that without a condom, and got mad at him. Now this pissed me off because you fucking knew he didn't have a condom on, and you let him fuck you raw. So why are you getting upset at him for, like, it's not like he tricked you. It's not like he had it on and took it off. You know, you knew there was no condom, and you let him go inside of you anyway, and now you're trying to have a rant about it. Oh my gosh. I at that moment, if I could have reached through a book and strangled a character, I would have done that to her at that moment. It's like, don't get mad at him because now you feel like shit about the decision you just made. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Own your shit. In the words of Lisa Rinna. She goes to sleep, wakes up. There's a cat in her face. Apparently, it's supposed to be Kerrigan's cat. Because Kerrigan lives in the dorm. She's 18. She's in college. She lives on campus. And so apparently that's why Kyle has it there. Because when she's not living in the dorms, I guess she was staying in the second bedroom of the apartment condo. Because you know it's lavish. So then he comes in with some coffee. And of course he doesn't have a shirt on. And so all she sees are these great abs. And she's just swooning, you know. So she's in her head thinking, damn, maybe we can squeeze it in one more time before I leave. So she blames these thoughts are just on her hormones, but I'm like, and it very well could be, but no, it's because your body likes his body too. Like, you gotta be honest with yourself. So then he asked her if she wants some coffee, and she was like, I can't, and explained the whole she can only have a limited amount, and so she just tries to stay away from it in general. And so then she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go. And he told her, you're not going anywhere. And she was like, huh? He's like, we're gonna go get something to eat first. And she's like, I'm not hungry. But then her stomach growls. Tells on her. So then she's like, okay, fine. Well, they're not having breakfast at his place. They're going to brunch. And so when they go to brunch, it's just not Kerrigan there. It's also his grandma that they call Gigi. So this freaks her out a little bit in old girl stalls. But the Gigi woman was super nice. Told her, of course, you call me Gigi. And she was just so sweet to her. So then, of course, you know, they want to hear how this all happened. So they met in Boston. So Daisy started telling this story. But, of course, she put all this other stuff in it. And then when it came time to the engagement story, he told that one. But it was like super short and sweet. Like, oh, just a nice quiet night at home. And I just asked her. Nothing spectacular, right? So he just was like, you know, she came up for a couple days and I asked her to marry me. And that was that. So Daisy was like, you don't tell it right. So she goes into this grandiose story about she had this favorite ice cream place. I forget the name she said it was. And he had gotten like 4 things of ice cream, but she had only asked for 3. And now he basically had her choose the ice cream and go through all of them. And then there was a ring in the last one, and how sweet it was and how he cooked for her. And, I mean, she made it sound adorable. And then when it came down to the ring, she starts describing it, like just to a T. And that the only reason why she doesn't have it is because it was too big. It's getting sized. Like, this girl got an imagination out of this world. So when they leave from there, they're going back up to his apartment, and she's telling him, you know, I'm not marrying you. That's not going to happen. So Kyle's like, okay, well, let's talk. Let's try and hash out some type of an agreement. So he really was serious when he said about them getting married. And she's like, are you freaking kidding me? He's like, no, I'm serious. Like, I come from a traditional family, and this child is mine. I want the child. I want to be in the child's life. And for it to be considered a legal heir, we would have to be married. So she was just like, so what? I'm just supposed to lay on my back whenever you want? Like, she has this whole thought process about marriage, and I don't know. I don't want to say she has an antiquated view of it, but maybe the old way of how it was done is all she really knows or thinks that way about it. I don't know. But she has a very 1950 view of marriage, and it's not cute, right? So he was like, basically like, our chemistry isn't an issue, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. And then he made the statement that, he knows the type of job that she has, and it's really not conducive to having children. And she understood that as well, and she was like, I'm going to quit the travel guide job. She was going to send it in at the end of the week. So even though she has Violet doing this gig, this was going to be the last one, and then she was going to go ahead and quit because her blog is what pays her bills. Like, that's where the most of her money has come from. And so she was just going to focus on her blog, and that was going to be her primary income. And she's going to create a traveling blog about traveling with kids. And, she figures that could possibly double the revenue. So she's good financially. And she said it again, I don't need you. And so Kyle's like, okay, but you just told me that you switched places with your sister for this week for a job. And he even asked her if her sister knew about the pregnancy, and she doesn't. She hasn't told her parents either. He was like, so you're trying to basically get everything straight before telling them about it. And he was like, well, getting married looks stable, doesn't it? That will be something that will make it possibly easier for you to tell your family. Because while they were I didn't mention this, but while they were at the brunch, he had told them they were getting married next week. And so he was serious. He was dead fucking serious. Like, that's what we're going to do. And so she basically was just like, I got to think about it. So she has now moved into his apartment. She's checked out of her hotel. And they're going to go to his cousin, who is a OBGYN. His name's Luke, and he's going to perform the test to do the whole DNA thing of who's the papa. So when they see the actual child on the screen, because I think he was able to just do the one where they rub it over your belly. It was like, oh my gosh, this is really real. Like, it got really real for her. And I think possibly for Kyle as well, even though, they're waiting on the results from the DNA test, but it got really real seeing the child on the screen. And so when they leave, he's still on this thing of wanting to be married and lets her know, we should try and do this. He's like, if you hate being married to me, you can divorce me, but at least give it some time. And he told her, if you just hate being married to me so bad, yeah, then you can get a divorce, but allow enough time so that way it's not like, we got married, had a baby, and get divorced real quick, because that's not good for the image of the company, and I do have to think about that. And at first she kind of got mad at that thought, and then she realized how stupid it was, because it was like, these are the things that you said you wanted. Like, you said you wanted someone to take responsibility and wanted to be there, and now you get it and you spit on it. And I hate when people do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what you said you wanted, a responsible person, and now you're all like, I don't want to do that. I don't, you know what I mean? So then it's like, well, maybe you deserve the trash that you get with the previous dudes. It's like some people, I think, when they don't have anything good, they don't know how to deal with it when they get something good. It's really sad. It really is. It's just super sad. So she starts looking around and realizes that he's able to bring a child right now, and he's prepared. He's got a Range Rover. He has space for the child in the home as well. She's got a 1 bedroom. She's got a 2-door Civic. You know, she hasn't planned anything for this baby. He's more prepared than she is, to be honest. And that's when she starts to realize, like, you know what? I might need to step up. You know what I mean? And she freaks out a little bit. And so I think she's more than likely leaning towards, I'm probably going to marry this man. So she gets dropped off at the apartment one day and Kyle tells her dinner at 6. This girl thinks that he means that she better have dinner on the table by 6 and goes off about it. And he just kind of looked at her and told her, I have someone that cooks for me. I forget the woman's name. But he has a housekeeper. And he's like, she brings meals. She does my laundry. She does everything. He was like, I was telling you to be ready by 6 because I was going to take you to dinner. Then she felt stupid. And I was glad she felt stupid because it was a stupid thing to fucking do. Like, nothing he said, the only thing he said that made you think of 1950s type of a relationship is him saying that we should get married. He hasn't told you can't work. He hasn't told you can't do anything and you do whatever. He hasn't done anything like that. But because you've now had that thought in your brain, you react to him based on that. I'm like, where did you hear in that he expected to have dinner on the table at 6? Nowhere. But because she has these preconceived notions, like this girl, another time I could have reached in the book. So she goes upstairs, and the housekeeper had dropped off like a lasagna. She winds up eating some of it. She's actually heating it up while her sister Violet calls her. And she wanted to talk about the British guy, and I can't think of his name right now. It'll probably come to me later. That she met and really likes, and is scared that she likes the guy so much. And Daisy just pretty much let her know, enjoy it. You have great sex. You like the guy. Have a great time. Just enjoy it. Don't put too much pressure on it. And that maybe, kind of helped Violet a little bit. But then Daisy did have the thought, like, Violet's going to be pissed when she does find out that she's been keeping this pregnancy from her. So he picks her up, and in the cup holder, there's a box, and it's a ring box. Opens it up. It's the exact ring that she described to his grandmother. This shit is big. And she was almost at a loss for words, and he told her he wanted to get it to where it looked like what she had described, and that if it wasn't what they want, what she wanted, she'd get something else. But it was perfect, to be honest. So they get to the game, and he's gotten the results back. Of course, he knows he's the father. She figured that as much, because otherwise he probably would have bought the ring. So then she has this whole thought process in her head about wanting to be wanted and not just wanting him to want her because she's pregnant. And she, of course, spirals in her head. She lets him know that, basically she hasn't been with anybody since him. And he doesn't say it at first, but then he eventually admits to her he hasn't been with anyone else as well since her. He took her to a Philly-Boston game, kind of as a throwback to their date in Philadelphia when they met. So she goes to her conference and Kyle drops her off. Everything's going good. She bumps into Margot. Margot, of course, was like, oh, if it isn't Kyle's fiance. And she has this, tone that she's talking with Daisy, that she's using with Daisy. So Daisy makes sure she lifts up her lanyard with the finger showing that ring. And she sees that shock that goes across Margot's face. She tries to hide it, but she saw it. And then Margot tries to go, oh, I'm glad he could recycle it. But Daisy knew there's no way. Like, that's a hell of a mathematical problem if I described the ring that you already had, And she didn't even though it was bothering her that they had possibly been together, she didn't show it. And I was super proud of her for that. She had a great comeback to what she said. And she was just like, oh, she's like, well, next time, she's like, you should have held on to him tighter. And I was glad. I was like, good, you didn't show her that weakness. I love it. So Margot kept saying, she made a comment, like he comes back, he always comes back and all this type of stuff. And my thing is, why would you ever say that to another woman? What is the purpose? You're trying to convince me. But if he's trying to marry me, I don't think I'm the one that needs to be convinced. You need to try and which is crazy in itself if you trying to convince a damn man, But it was like, that lets you know, oh, you're a real threat, Daisy. Because if you weren't a threat, she wouldn't even waste her time saying something to you. But you're a threat to someone who's weak, clearly. You know what I mean? So I love Daisy in that moment. I felt like she handled herself. She was amazing. She really was. She gets back home with Kyle, and of course, girl wants some answers. She want to know what's happened. So he tells her, yes, him and Margot, they did have a thing. They were engaged at one time. No, the ring that she has is not the same ring. Her ring is actually bigger than the one he bought Margot. He also doesn't know what happened to the ring that he bought Margot because he never asked for it back because he doesn't like her. It's been 2 years since they broke up. They apparently started back in high school and they had like this turbulent thing in college. He moved overseas, went to business school, was living over there, and then his parents died in the crash. I think it was a plane crash. It was either a plane or a car crash. And that's when he moved back to Philadelphia to help raise his sister. Because they have like a big age gap. I think he was 16 when she was born. So it's a big age gap. So he let her know, that is irrevocably, that is done. So then she asked him, do you like me? And he told her all the things about her that he likes. And basically it's the fact that she's just who she is. She's unapologetic. She's not trying to get anything from him. She's just being herself. And he notices all the little different things about her. And that, of course, makes her heart pitter patter. Because us women, we love when you pay attention. And so then she realizes, yeah, I like him a lot, And he was super sweet. He even had the housekeeper buy the different types of ice cream that she had described when she was given the fake proposal story. He had her buy all the different types. I thought that was so sweet. So Kyle's booked 2 first-class seats for them to go to Vegas. They are getting married. So when dude said next week, dude meant next week. So she, of course, was like, she would have thought he would have had a private jet. And he was like, I don't need that. So they get to Vegas. They both are kind of nervous. He's more so worried about her because he really just wants her to fall in love with him. And I think that's because he's already fallen, So he just wants this to be real for her as well. He even tells her, if you want a big wedding, like, we could still do that. Or if you just want a big reception, he's like, we could still do that, And she just kind of let him know she's just not really into that. Like, her thing is she feels like it's a private moment and it should just be between those two people. And I like that. I feel like she kind of maybe she vocalized, I think, how I view it. Like, I think it's a special moment between those two people. Like, it doesn't always have to be this massive amount of folks around you in order for it to be legit. You know what I mean? So I like that it's their moment, They didn't have to share it. I think that's beautiful. And she's like, I know that's not normal for most people to view it that way. She's like, but that's just how that's just how I see it. So they get married. There was a prenup. I think she gets like $3 million every year that she's married to him. Plus some other stuff. She didn't care about the money, but it's there. He actually was trying to make her like go for more, and she wasn't. His lawyer was pissed at him like, this is crazy, but he was like, nope, this is what I want. Period. The end. So they do the wedding, and after it, he was like, what do you want to do? And she looks at him and she's like, you don't know me at all. And he's like, you want room service? And she's like, yep. So they go back and they're super happy. They stayed the whole weekend. It was great. They basically fucked, ate a lot, talked a lot. Great weekend. She gets back and she calls Violet, and she had planned on telling her, but when she heard Violet's voice, she panicked and she never told her. So we get a little information about Violet. She's back in Naperville, which is a suburb outside of Chicago. That's where Daisy lives. I don't think I said that before, but that's where she lives. Um, and she has an interview lined up for a job in London. She also has another job locally that she's going for as well. And Daisy kind of panicked about her going away, but then she realized she wants Violet to have her own. She wants that woman to live her dream, to have her heart's desire, and that job in London is going to be perfect for her. She loves all things, old and antique, and so it's perfect for her. And so she told her, if you get that job, you take it. And so then they get off the phone, and again, she chickened out. She couldn't tell her sister. So her and Kerrigan go to brunch together, or like a little tea party thing. And they have a great time. She, of course, asks questions like, what happened with Margot. Kerrigan tells her, well, from what I've heard, apparently she cheated on Kyle with Wyatt. And that was like 2 years ago. So this would explain why they broke up and why he was like it was irrevocably done. They have great conversation. They talk about, her travel blog. And she's just so happy that Kyle found Daisy, and just loves love. She's just a happy person. We love people like that. And so then Daisy finds herself being very protective of Kerrigan and wondering, like, is just that mother gene kicking in, or is it just that I'm just growing up? So the next day she goes to Kyle's job. He doesn't stay too far away from the office. It's just a few blocks. And so she's like going back and forth with herself, like, should I go? Should I not? And of course she goes. So she texts him while she's in the lobby that she's there, and he tells her, don't you leave. I'm going to send someone down there for you. So he sends his assistant James to bring her up. And as she comes up, a group of men are leaving out, and the first thing he says to her when they're alone, he's like, did you come up here for a quickie? And so she gets all bashful, and he tells her, take your bottoms off. He's like, get on the desk. And so she does, and dude eats her pussy, makes her come, and then he takes out a handkerchief, which freaked her out, because she's like, who still has a handkerchief? But he wipes his mouth. It was so erotic to read. So then she asks about if the building has a daycare for kids, and he was like, we do. But why are you asking? He's like, because we're going to get a live-in nanny. So she automatically gets on the defense because she thought him saying that means that he doesn't believe she can take care of a child. And he's like, no, we both have careers, and I figured you would want, to still work. And I figured if you want to go out or do anything, especially coming for a quickie with your husband, that it would be nice to have a nanny at the house. But it still didn't waver her thought process, because her ass is still on this thing. But it's because she doesn't feel like she's ready, or she's going to fail. That's what's wrong. And she's projecting. You know what I mean? Because again, he didn't say anything to you to make you think that. But it's how you're perceiving it, because that thought is already in your mind. So it's like the minute someone says something, she has triggers. I guess we could say it like that. The girl just has triggers. So now the thought in her head is he just saying that because that's the truth? Or is it because he only married me because he thought he needed to keep an eye on me and the baby? So again, her spiraling. So Kyle's having a little workout with Luke, his cousin, and he's basically like, I'm falling in love with my wife. And Luke's like, yeah, that can happen. And then he was asking him questions about, the pregnancy. And he's like, her sex drive is so high. Is this real? Or like, what is it? And Luke's like, no, it's real. He's like, enjoy it, And Kyle was just like, oh, I see why you keep Sophie pregnant. Because I think she goes like damn near every 2 years she has a kid. And so Kyle was like, I'll keep her pregnant as long as I can. Like, until she tells me she doesn't want any, that's when we'll stop. And so then he tells him that you need to tell her before someone else does. So there's a secret, and I guarantee you it's going to have something to do with that baby, and I doubt our girl is going to take it well. That should be interesting. So Luke just told him again, you need to tell her before someone else does. And then he, of course, says he will. So Daisy talks with Violet, and we find out that Violet is engaged. The English guy, I can't remember what his name was. He had ghosted her, but he's actually the owner of the travel company. So when she went in for the interview, he came in and proposed. So Daisy then tells her she's already married and that she's pregnant, and Violet's excited, but also tells her, you can come stay with us. you know? And I'm like, oh, that's sweet. So Daisy admits to her sister she's definitely fallen in love with Kyle. And Violet's really happy and was like, listen, if you're happy, that's all that matters. So Daisy and Kyle are in bed. And she asks him if he wants to come with her to her appointment with the new OBGYN. And he tells her he'll come. And she, of course, wants him to want to come. Which, in all honesty, I think he does. I think now I think she's nitpicking again because she's overthinking. She's already fallen in love with this dude. So now you want him to feel what you feel. And you're not sure. And yet you don't have the balls to ask him. And so this is the little mind fucking games you're going to have going on. Until you get some actual clarification. And so she even makes a comment like, you can just drop me off and pick me up once I have the baby. And he's like, do you really think that I am going to leave you at the hospital? So then he's like, open your legs. He just starts eating her pussy and makes her come, and then he tells her to sit on it, and he fucks her until she comes again, and then he comes inside her. So she's home alone. Our girl Daisy, and so is Kyle's iPad. So it's beeping. So she finally goes over to it. It's locked, so she can't see. But when the messages pop up, she can see they are from Margot. And basically they're saying, I miss you. When can I see you again? And what time? So she's freaking out because she's trying to talk herself down because she's spiraling. And I get that because that's something I would, I'm an overthinker. I would probably spiral a little bit too. And I would have to try and calm myself down. And so she basically was like, she's going to go confront Kyle, get his side of what's possibly going on. So on her way to the office, she gets right down the street. She sees Margot get in a car and Kyle get in right after her. She texts him, can you meet up for lunch? He says, I can't. I'm in a meeting, but I want to see you afterwards. So she's just heartbroken, right? Because she's like, he's lying to me. She's hurt. So she goes to CVS. She gets some chocolate. And she sees a magazine article. It's like a Business Week article about Kyle. And so she grabs it, takes it back to the apartment. Basically what it says is that the child apparently, they know she's pregnant. There's an anonymous source. They know she's pregnant. And the child already has like 1 million shares. So it's worth like $1 billion already. And Kyle's going to have control over that until the child's 25 years old. So now she's thinking like this was all a setup. Like once she had the kid, he's probably going to try and fight her for custody. And she's like, I got to get out of here. And so she packs a bag. She leaves. Kyle had been texting her, but she would not respond. So she gets a flight back to Chicago. She uses the credit card that he gave her. And then it was like $400 for the ticket. And then she threw the credit card in the garbage. I'm like, oh my gosh. So then we go back to Kyle. And Kyle's come home. He sees the magazine and sees that her suitcase is gone and that she's left. So he goes to the airport, but there's no flights out because there's a storm. So he decides, guess I got to drive 12 hours. So he drives from Philadelphia to Chicago. Well, Naperville, technically, which is where she lives. And so he knocks on her door 4 o'clock in the morning. She answers, and she's like, what are you doing here? And he explains everything to her. So what we saw was Margot had gotten in the car, but HR was already in the car. They were taking her to an offsite to basically fire her or just like let her resign with dignity. And it was for sexual harassment because she had been sending text messages and things to Kyle, and he had been dealing with this for years. But once he got married, he was like, this shit gotta stop. So the deal with the article was that he was like, I don't need any shares for control. I'm in good standing with the board. They're going along with my plan. So there's no need for me to need shares from my child. Like, that has nothing to do with it. And he's like, I was going to tell you today, but unfortunately, I had to go deal with that first. And then I was going to tell you about it because I knew that article was hitting stands today. But I never thought you would ever see a Business Week because you don't read stuff like that. And then he tells her how much he loves her and that he fell in love with her on the sidewalk in Boston when they met. And she was just like, well, why did you leave? Because he left the next day, and he was like, well, when I saw that you had taken a picture with the camera, I kind of freaked out because I didn't know like why you would do that, because that's kind of like a fanish type of a thing to do. And so that's why he had took her camera, because he couldn't figure out how to delete the picture. So he just took the whole camera. Plus, he had to fly back, he had to catch a flight for Kerrigan's graduation. But what we find out, old boy had hired a whole investigative team to find her. And they found her. And so he knew about what she did for a living with the blog. And that's why he's the one that set up the conference in Philadelphia, because King's was the sponsor for that. And so his whole thing was he was going to go and see her at the conference. So he did want her. And this whole time she was like, oh, he just wants because of the baby. But the man wanted you from the get-go. It's just that you threw everything off when you showed up. It was like, oh, shit, I wanted her, but shit, this bitch might be crazy. And I should say bitch, but when he said, you crazy fucking bitch, I lost it. Oh, my gosh. So the whole time the dude really did want her. Her whole fear, which again, if you just kind of say what you think, or like if that's something that's super bothering you, and I know it can be difficult to do sometimes, but it's a prime example of why you should just get it out and know your answer, and you can move on from there, because her going back and forth kept her in such a fucked up space, because the truth was she wanted this man and she didn't know how to admit it to herself. She wanted something real. That was, I don't know, it's crazy. So she, of course, was like, okay, yes, I'll stay married to you. And, of course, she told the man she loved him, too. So they stay together. They have their first child, Kaylin, when, she was, 5 days late when they had him. And then 10 weeks later, she got pregnant again and had Kinsley, a daughter. So the kids are super close. Her sister, Violet, she lives in England. She has a child named Amelia. I think that child's 15 months. She's doing really well. Kerrigan is in a master's program now. Daisy has baby fever after holding Amelia, and so she talks to Kyle about having more kids. He says sure, because he was like, I could have kept giving you to him after Kinsley, but I figured you wanted a break, but yeah, we can have as many kids as you want. So their happily ever after really did happen, and she's just super thankful that her initial plan B, that it didn't work out, because if it had worked out, her just running in saying, I'm having a kid and leaving, she wouldn't have this great life. So that's how it ends. It was such a beautiful, cute read. I absolutely loved it. I highly recommend that you read it yourself. Again, her rants are just so great. Shout out to the author. You did a great job with this one. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you are in the market looking for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have some of those on sale, and the link will be listed down below in the description section as well. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.